stop him from going and serving his country?
The moment that they have the Spanish nationality, every door would be open to them, in the sense that, you know, we will not make any discrimination just because he has another nationality.
So the doors are quite open, he can do what he wants?
The moment he has a Spanish nationality, he can come, he can settle down, and he can enjoy the same level of protection and the same rights and obligations than anyone else.
And there is no obligation or conditions on the nationality, his parent nationality?
I don't think so. The fact is that depends on each and everyone. I mean, it's not an individual decision. What I meant is that depends on each agreement that Spain and any other country has signed. You know, the moment that you have the right to have double nationality, that sounds perfectly okay for us. So no problem are supposed to be expected from the Spanish authorities.
What about sports? Now, Spain has held the Olympics in Barcelona, and of course, do you feel that countries like Pakistan and even India and other countries, they should be given that opportunity as well?
I think that is why it's called the Olympic Games. I think that works on a rotational system, and why not? Pakistan and India are important countries with important sports skills. You know, as you know, that is a very long procedure. You have to comply with a certain number of things. I don't see any inconvenience, any hindrance, any obstacle that could prevent at some point India or Pakistan of hosting the Olympic Games.
How important does Spain see Pakistan?
As a general standing, let me tell you that the general idea at these precise moments in Spain, and I think I can talk for the rest of the European capitals, the idea is that whatever happens in Pakistan in the next 15, 16 months, it's going to be extremely important. But not only for Pakistan, not only for the region itself, because Pakistan, you live in a complicated neighborhood, but also it's going to be important for almost every one of us. And I'm saying this because not only because you are facing important internal and domestic things. I mean, you're going to have the caretaker government, the political campaign, new elections, a new government, but also important things are going to happen in the area. You will have new presidents in Afghanistan, in Iran, elections in India. This is an important area in the world. So we are looking forward, a lot of interest to whatever happens here. And most particularly, as far as Pakistan is concerned, let me tell you that we are looking with a lot of trepidation, of hope as well, to these general elections this year. I think they are very important. They are very important. This is the first time in that a civil government exhausts its mandate. The National Assembly will be taken to the end. A political campaign and new elections will happen. A new civil government will take over. This is of an extraordinary importance in terms of consolidation of the democratic system. And in that sense, we certainly support all these processes. And we don't have any doubt whatsoever that the government of Pakistan will take all necessary measures in order to be sure that elections will be fair and transparent.
We'll talk more on this, but we'll just take a break. And of course, how does Spain see, in particular, Pakistan's global existence and of course global, I would say, exposure, considering that Pakistan is fighting a war against terror, extremism, and of course extreme fanatical, I would say, fundamentalist sort of an attitude here. What the ambassador has to say on that, and how Spain stands next to Pakistan on extremism and terrorism, and of course when we speak about democracy, how does the Spanish government feel on that, and has their perspective. We'll speak more after the break.
हुकूमत सिंध और बेनजीर इनकम सपोर्ट प्रोग्राम के इश्तराक से वसीला हक सिंध सूबे भर से 34,000 से ज्यादा नौजवानों को अपना कारोबार शुरू करने के लिए दो एक साथ में 3 लाख रुपए की अदायगी के साथ 2 हफ्ते की मुफ्त तरबियत और रहनुमाई। कम से कम मैट्रिक तालीम रखने वाले 19 से 35 साल के मुस्तहिक उन नौजवानों के लिए अपना कारोबार शुरू करने का तारीखी मौका। जिनका नाम बेनजीर इनकम सपोर्ट प्रोग्राम के गुर्बत सर्वे में दर्ज हुआ और उनका गुर्बत शुमारी स्कोर 16.17 से 30 के दरमियान हो। वसीला हक सूबा सिंध में माशी बहाली और आवाम की खुशहाली के लिए अहम संग मील। वसीला हक सिंध, हमारा सिंध, बावकार, बारोजगार। 3 लाख रुपए, 2 मसावी इकसात में सिंध के गरीब और पढ़े लिखे नौजवानों को हुकूमत सिंध और बेनजीर इनकम सपोर्ट प्रोग्राम के इश्तराक से अपना कारोबार शुरू करने के लिए बिला सूद कर्जा।
इस कर्जे की सहूलत से, तालीम और अपनी मेहनत से हर घर आएगी खुशहाली। जब काम करे जवान पढ़े लिखे, वसीला बने हैं लोग अपने, पूरे होंगे अब सपने।
वसीला हक सिंध, हमारा सिंध, बावकार, बारोजगार।
Welcome back to Q&A with PJMir. For those of you who've just joined us on our international beams, I have with me the ambassador of Spain to Pakistan, Javier M.Carbajosa, who's of course speaking about the bilateral relations which Spain and Pakistan have, and of course the trade and industry, how they interact between the two countries. But in this last segment, we'll be talking about the global perspective of Pakistan, Pakistan's presence on the map, and of course Pakistan's role in the fight against extremism and terrorism, and of course what Afghanistan has to play, what India has to play, and then of course the exit strategy of the NATO forces. How does Spain see that? So that would exactly be my question. First of all, we'll start with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and of course the United States, and then of course we have another partner in India, who is right now enjoying good relations, or I'd say better relations than in the past between Pakistan and of course India. So how do you see, again, as an observer, the relation in the Troika and then of course with India?
First, you mean Afghanistan and
Afghanistan,
India?
Pakistan and the United States.
Understand. Well, again, stability in the area is of crucial importance to all of us. Starting by Afghanistan, important things are going to happen. 2014 will be the moment in which ISAF troops will leave. Actually, the withdrawal has already started. As far as we are concerned, I can tell you that we used to have, and we still have, a certain number of soldiers there, 1,500 to be more exact. 10% already left last year. Another percentage will leave this year, and 2014 will see the last of our contingent there, along and in coordination with the rest of the ISAF troops. That is exactly the map that was taken by NATO, and this is exactly what's going to happen. The question is, what's going to happen afterwards? What is going to be the political scenario in Afghanistan at that point? I think that in that terms, national reconciliation in Afghanistan is extremely important. And national reconciliation means that all political sensitivities, all political views have to be taken into account. In that sense, let me tell you that our feeling is that the original Pakistani idea has made way, in the sense that whether you like it or not, but Taliban will also have to be taken into account. You know that since some time ago, a certain number of negotiating tracks have been opened, and Afghanistan and Pakistan and other members of the international community are making their best in order to convince Taliban factions about the merits and the benefits of negotiating. The end result would be to be sure that whatever happens after 2014, we're not going to go back to what happened in 1996, a conflict, an open conflict between Pashtuns and non-Pashtuns. I think that the population, civil society, deserves more than that. Not only the Afghan government, but also the Pakistani government is doing, I think, an extraordinary effort that needs to be encouraged. Just a few days ago, we saw the important trilateral meeting that took place in London. President Zardari was there, President Karzai was there too. Another number of meetings have been held in other European and other international capitals. That is an important thing. And again, what we are all looking for is to be sure that stability will prevail after 2014, and that we will not face ourselves with a situation similar to the one that we used to be in the past. As far as India is concerned, actually, we were, when I say I mean the members of the European Union and certainly members of the international community, we were extremely encouraged in the last months of last year in order to say that new steps have been taken between both countries in order to promote, in order to improve relations. We are very much aware that because of history, because of the wars that have had between India and Pakistan, a lack of trust is still there. Some misgivings are still there and persist. But that is why the last steps taken by the Pakistani government, by the Indian government in the last year, November, were very seriously appreciated. Unfortunately, the incidents in the last couple of weeks, which take place in the line of control, have soured the ambience, the atmosphere a little bit. I must say, as far as that is concerned, that the European community, in most particular Spain, has appreciated the policy of restraint and contention that Pakistan has observed in order to avoid any escalation.
Now, you mentioned a very good point, the Pashtuns and the non-Pashtuns. What kind of an exit strategy would you foresee? Because, again, Spain has been a victim of terrorism as well, as far as Basque separatists are concerned. So how did you deal with those people? Because this mindset, how do you expect Pakistan actually to deal with this sort of a mindset?
Let me tell you, first of all, that I think that the West, in particular Spain, because as you said, we have suffered as well from terrorism, we are very much aware that Pakistan itself and the Pakistani people has suffered terribly from terrorism. The numbers of victims, of casualties, are in the tens of thousands. And this is something which cannot be forgotten. And that is why every time that you talk about national reconciliation, dialogue with insurgents, those are extremely sensitive issues and should be approached with care and with respect. Again, as far as the exit strategy is concerned, what you have is a date, and that means that 2015 there will be no ISAF troops there. And what you have is a situation in which a certain number of components of the Afghan society will have to find a way in order to live together. Nobody wants war. The question is, what terms are those necessary to assure peaceful coexistence? Again, I think that the only way to do that is dialogue and negotiation. I do hope, and we do hope, that these negotiations that have been started will give some result, will yield result, and that Taliban and the rest of ethnic groups in Afghanistan will understand that war, confrontation, conflict is not the solution. They need to find a way, because there's a whole population of people just waiting for answers, and with a lot of legitimate aspirations to live their future in peace and prosperity, which is actually the only thing that you can hope for when you're talking about the future of one country. The same thing that I hope for my country is exactly the same thing that I hope for the rest. And in that sense, we are trying to be as instrumental as possible, in the sense that the solution to terrorism cannot only be military operations. The solution to terrorism cannot only be war. You have to study and to have a look to the real roots of extremism, fanaticism, and try to understand that you have also to face the social cause, the economic reasons that lay behind that. You have to have a global approach, including political, certainly military, but at the same time social, economic, and peace conflict solutions to that.
But if you read or listen or watch former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's statement that in the last war, the Afghan war, 79 onwards, Americans deserted the Taliban, and the Taliban re-emerged, because that area has always been a very volatile area. Not even the British have been able to control it. So with this exit strategy in 2014, if the forces leave and again it reverts back to square one, don't you think it would be a defeatist
It is.
attitude?
There's also a risk, but let me tell you that the other day I was with my American colleague and some other colleagues at some event organized at one of the important centers here in Islamabad, and we were talking about that. And I think that even the American ambassador said that I think that we have learned from the past, and we have learned what we are not supposed to do again. You're absolutely right. At that point back in at the time that you mentioned before, everybody left, and Afghanistan and Pakistan were left alone. I think that that mistake will not be repeated. Actually, if you compare the situation that you have now in Afghanistan, it's not exactly the one you have a lot of years ago. You have a stronger police, you have a strong army, you have a more diversified educational system, and certainly the international community has been pouring a lot of financial aid in Afghanistan. So the situation is not exactly the same. At the same time, I think that the most militant and insurgent groups know very well that the situation is not the same that it used to be in the past, that they will not have the power to trigger again an open and generalized civil war. They will not be able to conquer Kabul again. My feeling is that negotiation and dialogue is needed. As the Pakistani government says, and I think that that's an approach that is absolutely acceptable, it has to be an Afghan-led process and an Afghan-inclusive process, in the sense that all ethnic groups, all political parts should be taken into account. The future of Afghanistan has to be based on an agreement which is accepted by each and every one of the layers of the Afghan society. Otherwise, it will not work.
But what about the immediate neighbors, Iran, Pakistan, India, and of course on the other side, the Russian federations?
Everybody needs to be on the same line. Everybody needs to be in sync. Everybody has to understand that, first of all, the future of Afghanistan belongs to the Afghans, and that no one is supposed to be meddling in their affairs. And that is despite the fact that Pakistan, India, Iran has the right, of course, to have economic and political good relationships with Afghanistan. This is what the international community is all about. That is one thing. A very different thing is to start meddling in affairs that only belong to the Afghans themselves.
You know, when you speak so positively on that side, then why is Pakistan suffering because of all of this? And as you mentioned, there are, there are only about 40,000 civilians who have died for no reason whatsoever, the suicide attacks and so on and forth. So why is Pakistan suffering? Is it because of American policies? Is it because of internal policies or the relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan? Or is it between the Pakistani Taliban and the Afghan Taliban?
There's a variety of reasons, but I guess that one would be the fact that you have an important phenomenon of local internal terrorism. In that sense, it's going to be extremely important to see which is going to be the response of the local authorities to the offer made by the Pakistani Taliban. Of course, this is just a response that only is up to the Pakistani authorities. I have been following, actually, with a lot of interest, the All Conference Party, which took place last Thursday in Karachi as well. Again, my feeling is that nobody wants war, nobody wants terrorism, but at the same time you have to be extremely careful to what you said, because terrorism has been there here in Pakistan for a long time. Pakistani people has been suffering a lot, and you have to approach that. And again, I insist, it's only up to the government of Pakistan to decide which is the way that you have to do. But yes, I think that the fact that you have homegrown terrorism is an important consideration.
You mentioned earlier on briefly about the democratic process which is now developing in Pakistan. Do you think this is the right way to go about it? Because a lot of people feel that, because of a variety of reasons, a variety of economic, let's say, letdowns because of the global market, do you feel that an intervention of any sort, would that be damaging to Pakistan, or would you think that would be a stabilizing factor?
I can tell you that the number of conspiracy theories that I hear on a daily basis are endless. And I can be a little bit naive here, but my conviction, and I tell that to whenever I'm talking with officials or with the general public in terms, my conviction is that we are going to have a caretaker government, as the Pakistani government said. We're going to have a political campaign. I'm sure, as I told you before, that all measures will be taken in order to assure transparent elections. And I'm sure as well that elections will be held in time, and that a new government will take over. And I think that this is of an extraordinary importance in terms of consolidation of democracy. You see, democracy is not something that you do overnight. Democracy is not only a political system embedded in a constitution, is a culture. It's something that you breathe, is a behavior, is not only a piece of paper written. Spain was not democratic until 1975.
Under General Franco?
Exactly. General Franco died in 1975, and it is from that point onwards that we start our own transitional period. And actually, the great success story of Spain is that we did that transitional period in peace, and that we did it with the coordination and the support of all political forces, those who had been a part of the system before and those who were in the opposition or even exile. And they all come down to sit down around the table and come down to the conclusion that the only way ahead is to mix, to forge a general agreement that could work for all of us. And that's why we have the Constitution. This is only to tell you that each country has its own pace, its own approach. The end result should be the same, to find a representative government in which people have public liberties, civil rights, there is representation, and the basic democratic system is there. Of course, you will have flaws and difficulties at first. We all had. But I'm sure that that is the way. No military coup will solve that. No fanatical extremist form of government will solve solutions. So I'm sure that the Pakistani people will find its own way, and I think that what you have today, this year, in order to accomplish this consolidation of the democratic system is the right way to proceed.
Ambassador, when Spain came out of, let's say, the military dictatorship, how did Spain reinvent itself?
That was, let me tell you, not only from the political point of view, Spain has some serious difficulties, but also from the economic point of view. We were facing through a very complicated situation. I think that, first of all, as I told you before, this political agreement between all forces, and then our integration in the European Union. That is extremely important, and that is why I think that that experience of integration, of regional integration, is something that could be of extreme interest in other parts of the world, like here in Southeast Asia. And I think that the Pakistani government is doing a very good job in those terms. I think that they have diversified, they have encouraging, they are speeding up the process of integration in a number of organizations. I think that that's extremely important. Regional trade, for instance, at this point is very low. If you compare it with the fact that European Union member states have 50% almost of the trade among them, that's an important thing. Whereas if you take what you have, the trade balance between, the trade commerce between India and Pakistan is only 4 or 5%. The possibilities are so huge, but this has to follow a process.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That was Ambassador Javier M.Carbajosa, the Ambassador of Spain, speaking and talking about international politics and, of course, the relations between Pakistan and Spain. And of course, as he's mentioned it, that of course Spain itself was under a military dictatorship, but how it reinvented itself and how Pakistan can reinvent itself through only one process, and that is the democratic process, which of course this country is undergoing at this present moment in time. Well, that's all for today, but as I always say, that if you want to improve democracy, if you want to take the progress of the people of this country forward, there's only one thing: keep the interest of Pakistan first. Khudafis.